Hi, I'm Tracy. I'm garden manager here at RHS Bridgewater, and we're in Middlewood today, our woodland, and we're here to talk about what you can do to look after wildlife this autumn. Now, autumn's a really important time for wildlife because they're stocking up a lot of them. They're going to hibernate or go into a torpor over winter, and they really need to stock up. But also they need somewhere nice and warm and cosy to survive those cold winter months. So as you can see behind me, we've got this lovely log wall. Now this is called a log wall, eco pile, hibernacular. There are lots of different terms that you might use, and it's a really good place for beetles and bugs to hibernate. But also if you create enough space at the base, you can have a really good space for toads, newts, worms, snakes, and also hedgehogs. So to give you a little bit of advice on how you might want to put one of these together, we've got a few little bits here to show you how we constructed this. You can do as big or as small as you want. It can be a small pile of sticks underneath a hedgerow or underneath a large shrub, up to quite a sculptural centrepiece to your garden, depending on what you want, and really the limit is your imagination. So here to start off, if you want to create a nice space underneath, if you buy a pond and you want to do that for toads, it might be a good idea to just dig a shallow hole first, probably only about 10 centimetres deep, something like that, and then you line it with some stones or some twigs, and then you can build up from that to create something above ground. What we did here is we had a huge collection of different sized pieces of wood. We've cut them to roughly about the same size, so it's quite easy to stack them. If you have lots of different lengths, what you end up with is your eco pile starts to lean. It looks a little bit more pleasing if they're all the same sort of length. So what we started with is we just laid them out. So you just lay them out on the ground like this, and you just lay them to the size you want, and then you gradually build them up. What we tend to find is the bigger logs work better for the base, and then you gradually go smaller and smaller as you go up. As you can see here, we've got plenty of chopped pieces of wood, and these might be offcuts that you've used if you're chopping for a log burner, and we've done those at the top and pinned in some cases just to keep it a little bit more steady. So you've got logs, you start to stack them like this and you bring them along, but as you start to go up, you might find it's a little bit unstable. Now if it's the back of your garden, then that's not going to matter, but here we've pinned them. We've used some nails, no-headed nails, and that just means that when you touch it, like this bit here, that's solid, and that's really just, if you've got children that might climb on it, it just keeps it a little bit safer. And then the next thing to do, we've got a nice little bit of a hollow underneath here. Now we're going to use leaves, which everybody, if they've got a deciduous tree in their garden, are going to have plenty of, and probably spend their time sweeping paths, patios. Well, rather than just put all of that in your green bin, what you can do is then stuff that underneath. So if we put that underneath like this, that will start to create a really nice place for hedgehogs or toads to snuggle down. They'll be nice and warm at the base. If you haven't got a big log pile like this, then any space at the back of a border, underneath a hedge, underneath a large shrub, you can just put some of your leaves. You might not want to put all of them from paths that you've swept up, but certainly put some of them there in a nice pile, a bit like we've got here, a nice pile, and then that gives somewhere great for wildlife to go and snuggle down through the winter months. If you do decide to go for a larger, more sculptural log pile, but think it looks a little bit bare in your borders, then one of the perfect things that you can do is just get some plants, and then you can incorporate it as part of your garden and part of your display. So we've got a number of different ferns, and you can go for anything. So these ferns will get quite large, and they can go at the base of a log pile, and then you kind of see the logs through ferns. Or you can go for really tiny ferns, like the ones you see on walls, and then you can plug those into the gaps. You can either put a little bit of compost, put a little bit of soil in if the gap's quite large, or in a lot of cases the rotting down wood will be more than enough for those ferns to survive. But then it allows you to just soften your wood pile before the mushrooms and fungi also add quite a lot of interest. We've got some really interesting mushrooms growing on some of the log piles around in Bridgewater. And lastly, one of the things you can do is you can put leaf litter, you could put some soil over the top. So here, and rather than just have a top of wood, you can then sow it or plant some wildflower seeds over the top. And then that's almost like it's got hair, but it will give it quite a nice green effect at the back of a border.